There's a little seaside town on the southern edge of Metro Vancouver that somehow keeps flying under the radar, at least for people moving to the region for the first time. Everyone thinks of the big names, Vancouver, Burnaby, Victoria, but ask the locals, they know. In fact, a lot of people who've lived all over the Lower Mainland end up here eventually. White Rock just tends to be where people land when they finally figure out what they want. In this video, I'm breaking down the top 10 reasons people are making the move to White Rock and South Surrey and why it's in such high demand right now. A quick note before we dive into, I'll be using those names pretty much interchangeably throughout the video because that's exactly how the locals use them. And before we get into the list, I want to flag something that I'm going to come back to near the end of the video, because one of these reasons is something almost nobody talks about when they're researching this area, and it might actually be the most underrated thing about living here. So you're going to want to stick around for that one, so let's get into it right now.
You only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
Hey, before we kick off, if you're thinking about buying or selling in White Rock or South Surrey, the biggest mistake that you can make right now is relying on outdated advice or guessing your next move. The market has shifted, and what worked even 6 months ago could cost you tens of thousands today. My name is Darin. I'm a realtor living and working here in White Rock and South Surrey, and I've been helping families buy and sell here since 2007. And since then, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients, many of whom found me right here on this YouTube channel because they wanted straight answers, real local insight, and a strategy that actually works. On this channel, I break down exactly what's happening in our market, what to watch out for, and how to make smart decisions so you don't leave any money on the table. So if you want to stay ahead of the market, hit subscribe. And if you're serious about making a move, there's a link below to book a quick call with me or my team. There's no pressure, just clear advice so you can move forward with confidence. All right, coming in at number one, and honestly, this is the one that anybody who's ever lived in Metro Vancouver will immediately appreciate, and that's the weather. White Rock sits in a genuine geographic sweet spot because of its position on Semiahmoo Bay and the way that the terrain sits relative to the rest of the region. It consistently gets more sunshine and less rainfall than almost everywhere else in Metro Vancouver. We're talking roughly 1,900 hours of sunshine a year, and if you've ever spent a gray February in Burnaby or North Vancouver, you know exactly why that number matters. The summers are warm and dry. August only averages about 22 millimeters of rain, and the winters are mild enough that snow is more of a novelty than a reality. And the rest of the region, while it's getting hammered, White Rock is often sitting just outside of all the chaos on the edge of it. Now, it's not Hawaii, but for BC, it's about as good as it gets without leaving the province. Coming in at number two, and this one matters a lot when you're choosing where to plant roots, and that's safety. White Rock consistently comes in well below the regional average when it comes to violent crime. Compared to cities like Vancouver, Surrey, Langley, and Maple Ridge, White Rock fares significantly better, and the numbers actually back that up. To give you a sense of scale, Surrey recorded over 33,000 criminal code offenses in 2024. White Rock, with its own distinct city boundary and its own policing, is a very different story. In 2022, residential break-ins were rare, and over 50% of what actually gets reported in White Rock falls into categories of things like uttering threats and criminal harassment, not physical altercations. Now, I don't want that to scare you, but that's what the report says. And things like vehicle theft, well, that happens here like it does everywhere. But if you're coming from almost anywhere else in Metro Vancouver, the difference in how safe White Rock feels on a day-to-day basis is something people notice almost immediately after they arrive. Number three, and look, this one might seem obvious, but it's generally hard to argue with. White Rock has one of the only real sandy beaches in all of Metro Vancouver, sitting on the warm, shallow waters of Semiahmoo Bay. And when I say shallow, I actually mean shallow. This is one of the warmest places to swim in the entire region because the tide goes way out and the sun heats up the water in a way that just doesn't happen at most other BC beaches. The promenade running along the beach runs 2.19 kilometers along the waterfront, and the pier, what White Rock is famous for, at least one of the things, stretches 470 meters out into Semiahmoo Bay. It was originally built in 1914, and this whole area is lined. The strip, it's got restaurants, cafes, and shops. In the summer, you've got things like kayaking, paddleboarding, skimboarding, swimming, fishing, fishing off the pier, beachcombing, and bird watching. The bay is, in fact, home to over 280 bird species, if that's your thing. And in the winter, storm watching can be pretty cool from the promenade with a cup of coffee in your hand, and it's generally one of the better ways to spend a Sunday. Most people in Metro Vancouver have to drive to find a beach, and here it's just a normal Tuesday. Number 4 is one that's a little harder to quantify, but that might actually be the thing people feel most strongly about after they've lived here for a while, and that's community. And I'm speaking as a local here. White Rock and South Surrey sit on a peninsula, which means the community naturally folds in on itself in one of the best possible ways. There aren't a lot of people passing through. The people you see at the grocery store are the same ones that you see at your kid's soccer game or at the farmer's market on a Sunday or at the promenade. You start recognizing faces pretty quickly, and that creates something that's generally rare in Metro Vancouver. It's a neighborhood feel at a city scale. The area is also becoming increasingly more walkable, particularly around the waterfront and Uptown White Rock, and also in and around the Five Corners area where you can get groceries, restaurants, cafes, and services all within easy reach. It's the kind of place where people get involved as well. Community events, local sports, volunteer groups, because it's small enough that your participation actually feels like it means something. If you've come from a bigger, more anonymous part of the region, that shift is something people talk about consistently when they end up getting here and you ask them why they love it. Coming in at number 5, and this one genuinely surprises a lot of people, it's education. I talk a lot about that on this channel and all the best schools in the area. White Rock and South Surrey punch well above their weight when it comes to schools. On the public side, you've got elementary schools like Bay Ridge Elementary and secondary schools like Semiahmoo Secondary, which consistently rank among the top performers in the entire region. And that's just scratching the surface. It's not limited to those. On the private side, you've got incredibly heavy hitters. In fact, the best rated in British Columbia, as an example, Southridge School, one of the most well-regarded independent schools in the entire province. And there are several other private options in the area that draw families from right across the Lower Mainland specifically for the education. Some families decide where they live in this part of the region based entirely on school access, and that tells you everything that you need to know. Whether you're after a strong public school or a French immersion program like they offer at La Ronde, or a private school experience, White Rock and South Surrey have options that compete with anything you'll find anywhere else in BC. Hey, before we get into number 6, just a quick heads up. If you're even thinking about buying a home anywhere in BC, you'll want to grab a copy of our free guide, 18 Grants and Rebates for Home Buyers. We pulled together every program that we could find, federal, provincial, and even some lesser known local ones, plus links, tips, and simple ways to actually use them. Most of these are buried, they're confusing, or completely missed by buyers, and these could save you thousands of dollars. It's free, and you can download it right now by using the link in the description of this video. All right, number 6, and I want to be straight with you on this one because it comes with a bit of a nuance. White Rock is not overrun with density, at least not in the way a lot of Metro Vancouver is. Now, like every municipality in BC, White Rock is subject to the provincial housing legislation that's bringing some small-scale multi-unit housing into previously single-family neighborhoods. And if you're not familiar with what that is, we've done lots of videos on the channel about that. But that's happening everywhere, and White Rock isn't exempt. But the density that is coming is largely focused on the core areas. The tree-lined streets, the established neighborhoods, the views, that character isn't going anywhere, at least anytime soon. And compare that to parts of Vancouver, Burnaby, or even sections of Surrey where tower cranes are basically a permanent part of the skyline, and White Rock still feels remarkably low density, low rise, and it just doesn't feel like the same scale as some of these other big cities. It's not frozen in time, but it's not being turned inside out either. And for a lot of people moving here, that balance is exactly what they're looking for. Number 7, if you spent any time driving in Metro Vancouver, you already know where I'm going this one. Traffic is terrible. White Rock and South Surrey have a genuinely different relationship with congestion, and a big part of that comes down to simple geography. Because White Rock sits at the end of a peninsula with the US border on one side and Semiahmoo Bay on the other, nobody is passing on their way through White Rock and South Surrey onto somewhere else. The people on the roads here are mostly just people who live here. That means the day-to-day driving experience is just a little bit calmer, and getting to the grocery store, school pickup, the beach, a restaurant, it all just moves. And I want to be straight with you. It can, of course, at times get busy. And if you're commuting daily into areas like Vancouver, Richmond, or Burnaby, that's a real drive that you should factor in. This isn't a SkyTrain community, at least not yet. But the vast majority of people who work locally work remotely or have retired. The traffic situation here compared to the rest of Metro Vancouver is night and day, literally. Okay, number 8. This is the one I teased at the beginning of the video, and honestly, it's my favorite on the list. Most people have no idea about about this, but it explains almost everything about why White Rock feels the way it does. And that's something you don't want to discount. It does feel different. So why is that? Well, White Rock wasn't built as a suburb. It wasn't planned as a bedroom community or a transit corridor. White Rock started as a vacation destination. In the early 1900s, the Great Northern Railway rerouted its line along the shores of Semiahmoo Bay, and almost overnight, people from Vancouver and New Westminster started flooding here down on the weekends. By 1912, there was about 1,500 visitors pouring in on summer days, primarily on the weekends. And cottages lined the waterfront at the time. The Pier, which White Rock is famous for, opened in 1914. And White Rock became the place people came to escape to. And here's the thing. That DNA never really left. Those summer cottages eventually became permanent homes, and the city incorporated in 1957. And what you have today is a community that was quite literally built around the idea of enjoying where you live. The beach, the promenade, the restaurants, the pace of life, none of that is accidental. It was baked in from the very beginning. You're just not moving to a nice neighborhood. You're moving to a place that was designed to be someone's favorite place. Now, number 9, and if the beach wasn't enough, White Rock and South Surrey are genuinely loaded with options of getting outside. The city has 15 parks covering over 80 acres, and the variety is what makes it work for so many different people. Centennial Park is the anchor, a 400-meter rubberized running track, soccer and baseball fields, tennis courts, an off-leash dog area, and the Generations Playground, which is fully accessible, and it's a facility really for all ages. Right next door, Ruth Johnson Park takes you into the forest with trails that wind up through a ravine all the way down to White Rock Beach. Then there's Semiahmoo Trail, a 12-kilometer heritage route that follows along Anderson Creek through the trees, the kind of walk where you generally forget that you're actually in Metro Vancouver. And all of that is before you factor in Crescent Beach, which has a completely different vibe from White Rock Beach, much quieter, more tucked away, a favorite for families and kayakers. South Surrey Athletic Park is one of the best multi-sport facilities in the entire region. And Sunnyside Acres Urban Forest is exactly what it sounds like, 90 acres of forest right in the middle of the community. For an area of this size, the outdoor options here are genuinely exceptional. I even forgot to talk about Crescent Park itself. It's unbelievable and amazing. We just got so much here. Coming in at number 10, this one's a little harder to put your finger on, but once you spend some time here, you absolutely feel it. And this one's important for a lot of people. White Rock and South Surrey have a genuinely mixed community in the best sense of the word. You've got young families who've moved here for schools, retirees who came here for the lifestyle, professionals who work remotely and want a better quality of life. And you've also got a lot of long-term locals who've been here for decades. Culturally, the area has grown significantly more diverse over the years. That shows up in the restaurants and the businesses and the neighborhoods. And what makes it work is that no single group dominates the character of the place. It doesn't feel like it belongs to one type of person. In the Lower Mainland, where certain communities can feel very specifically oriented towards one demographic or one certain age style or one certain lifestyle, the balance is actually pretty rare. And people from a lot of different backgrounds and life stages end up here and find that it just works. And I think that comes back to what I said at the very beginning. White Rock and South Surrey tend to be a place where people land when they finally figure out exactly what they want. And what it turns out that most people want is looking a lot like this. So there you have it. 10 reasons why people are making the move to White Rock and South Surrey. And honestly, the hardest part was narrowing it down to just 10 reasons. If you're researching this area and you want to go any deeper on any of these topics, we've got a ton of videos on this channel covering everything from the best neighborhoods to the real estate market to what it actually costs to live here. And if you're seriously considering a move and want to talk through what your options might look like for your specific situation, the link to reach us is below this video. Now, if that South Surrey and White Rock conversation has got you curious exactly about where the best places to land within the area are, because not all of them are created equal, well, the good news is I've also done a complete breakdown on that exact topic. And the good news is that video is coming up right now. Surrey is being built for a version of itself that feels like a stranger, and it's arriving faster than you might think.